one thing you'll find with paginated views in Cake is that if you move to another page, so you on page 3 for example here, and then you edit one of your articles or whatever you're editing, when you commit that, it will take you back to page 1 of your index view. So it can be nice to return to where you were. So we're just going to look at doing that. Now, what we're going to do is look at the edit method here and make some changes so that we can return to it. The correct page of the index view. So firstly, just to make this a little bit easier to work with, I'm going to go up to the top of my articles controller and specify public paginate and just give it a page limit of 4 articles. And yeah, so you can, the other way you can do this is you can do it sort of, I should say, like that, and that will do the same thing, but it doesn't stick. So just do it in your controller to override this to give you this many per page. Now that we've done that, let's have a look at our edit method and have a look what we need to do in order to get us to redirect back. So basically what we want to do is when we have a look, when we click on the edit button, we want to take, so for example, if we're on page 5 and we click on the edit button, we want to take a reference to this location and embed it in this edit form so that when we submit, the edit action knows to redirect back to page 5. So to do that, first of all, we do this referrer. Let's just dump and die that. And we go to another page and let's hit edit, and we can see that we've got a reference to that page on the article's index view. Now another thing we can do is when we click on this, sometimes we want to have this fully qualified. So we might, first of all, we want to maybe make a default. So if the referrer is missing, let's just put the default URL will be where it would normally return to on a manually or an auto-baked view. So we'll say let's make the default, if it doesn't have a referrer, to that, and we'll make false to make it fully qualified. So now let's have a look at that, and we can see that it's now the fully qualified host name. Now that can be handy when you start working with, you know, proxies and all sorts of things, because all this will be the internet host name, and that will get around problems with it, you know, the Docker container that you're hosting services in, thinking it's localhost and those sorts of things, and this is no longer sort of a relative reference. Okay, so we've now got the referrer URL we want to pass to our edit form, so let's do that. And that's it. Now we want to show that in our edit form. Now we can just copy one of these controls, call it referrer, give it a value of the referrer that we're passing to it, and now let's have a look, and we can see that when we go to another page, it's put the referrer there. Now there's two ways you can make this into a hidden form. You can either say type equals hidden like this, or it's a bit more shorthand, but you can change this to be hidden. So let's reload that and have a look at the code, and we can see that we've got our referrer there. Now there's a problem here. If I modify this to be google.com, what is possible is that when I submit this and then redirect back to this referrer, it'll redirect. We'll just show you that. So let's get that post data here, and then get hold of the referrer again from data referrer, and now redirect to the referrer here. Notice what happens when I press submit here. So that, you know, potentially something could be changed in here, and that would then lead to undesirable results, a redirection that you didn't want, or something like that. So let's look at another layer of, if you like, protection by encrypting our referrer URL. So to do that, let's have a look at so the first thing we have to do is encrypt, and if we have a look at the documentation for CakePHP, we can see we've got this security utility with the ability to encrypt and decrypt in AES 256, and it needs a key. Now that's an example. This key is 32 digits long, and we're going to make one of those so that we can do that. Now there's a utility here that generates a random string, so that's a good place to start to create the key for the encryption key. So where will we store that? Well, if we go into config and have a look in app_local, we currently have a salt value here, but we can also specify a key value if we like. So we just need to add a key. Now, how are we going to run this random string utility? Well, we can do that using a suggested package in the composer.json. If you have a look under the suggest, we've got cake/repl, so a console application. If I do the autocomplete for cake at the moment, we can see we don't have a console application, so that means that the REPL plugin's not installed. So to install it, we go composer require, make it a dev dependency, CakePHP REPL, and then it will install. Now for some reason, after Composer gets to the Composer fund, it just seems to take a long time to return. But if I go here, it seems that it's already installed and it's just ready to go, so we can do that. Now what we need to do to create a random password is to run this cake utility, random string utility. So I can just paste this in, and if I press enter now, it's going to fail because the length isn't specified, but we can just specify, let's make it 64 characters. It could be 30, 32 is okay apparently. So let's make it a long one. And so we create a long password there, go into our app local and put that in. Now we have to encrypt our referrer URL here. So to do that, we use security encrypt, and then the first argument is a string, which is our referrer URL, and then our second argument is a key. And to get hold of the key that's in app_local, we can use configure. Now we could use read, and that would be okay. Let me just double check to make sure that's pulled in. And that would be okay, but it leaves the value in the configure array. So what we might do is change it to consume. As you can see here, it reads and then deletes a variable from configure. So as soon as it's consumed, it's gone. It's no longer there. So we now need to specify security.key to match this. So it's security.key. So it's just dot to specify these levels, if you like. Alright, so we now have our encrypted URL. It's being passed through to our edit form and into a hidden field. Let's have a look at that as it running there. So we'll just reload. Now as you can see in this form and in the inspect window, we can see there's a lot of binary characters. So we'd like to make sure that this is just a pure string. So to do that, we can now use another PHP function called base64 encode. And we now have, if we refresh this, we now have a string instead of a binary string. So now we need to, when we read the referrer, we need to do a reversal of what we've done here. So the first thing, so it goes from outside in, the first thing we need to do is base64 decode. And you notice there it has a strict thing. If strict is set, it will return false. So if there's anything inserted that's not a base64, it'll return false. So let's make it strict so that if there's any changes to the string or it's not base64, it will say return false. So let's do that, and then also do our now decryption. So security decrypt, and again we need to specify the key, and that should be all that's required. So does it work? So let's go to page 7 and do an edit on, and we can see that it's being, if we have a look, we can see that the encrypted string is being passed back to the server, to that edit action, and it's being decrypted by the decrypt function here. And now let's start to mess with it to see if we can break it so that we can get some error checking. So remember, we said if it has any characters that are not in base 64, it will return false. So I'm just going to make a modification to that string, and now we see it's blown up. So we want to handle that type error. So to do that, let's put it inside a try catch block. And what did it say it was? It was a type error. So we want to say, okay, if it's a type error, so we put this into here. We want to catch that. And what do we want to do? It's not going to return a referrer string. So we want to, well, let's make it obvious. This flash error, and let's just display that error. Right, let's try that again. So we'll go edit and inspect. Thank you. All right, okay, and just submit. Right, and so what's happened there is it's blown up and we're not resetting the referrer variable here. So when it blows up, just set it as default. Now that might happen let's maybe just, so if, yeah, that will work, that will set it to what we want. If it's not, is set referrer or empty referrer, then just set the referrer to the default array. Let's have a look at it now and see how it works. Right, so inspect. All right, let's now make it blow up again and post some garbage. Right, so it's now redirecting back to the default redirect route, and it's telling us that, yeah, we're giving a boolean because base 64 decode being strict will return false. So that's now catching that type error. Let's now simulate another error. Let's say we don't specify the key properly. So we go here again, choose one of our pages, go edit, this time just submit it, and this time we have an invalid argument exception. So now we want to add another exception. Now these are PHP core exceptions, so you specify them with this so you don't get confused with any other exceptions that might exist with the same name. So just say it's that root exception. This time we'll do the same thing again. We'll say, okay, give us the error message as well. Let's have a look. So we go edit and submit, and this time we can see that now that other error is being handled, and of course you wouldn't want to display these particular errors in the GUI, but just for the sake of demonstration. Alright, so now we're catching the errors where for saying if we don't set the referrer here, just set it to the default. And now let's see it working when it doesn't error out. So let's look at let's go to page 7 and then go edit on this one, and then finally it's redirecting back to where we were successfully with an encrypted referrer URL in the form. So that I hope is helpful to someone.